You're listening to the Outdoors Group podcast. This podcast is a call to arms to get children and young people outside again. It's your one-stop shop for all things outdoor, child, young person and education related. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're delighted to be joined by one of our directors, Tom Lowday again. Previously he came and talked to us about the importance of play and how Forest School facilitates a fantastic environment for giving young people the freedom to play. So go and check that one out if you haven't already listened. But today he's come with his ecological head on to talk about the rewilding and sustainable site management work that we're doing at our biggest woodland site in South Devon. Thanks for joining me today, Tom.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
Let's start by explaining what site we're talking about and what it looked like when we acquired it and like the history of it in ecological terms.
Okay, so the school site is just outside of South Brent, which is close to the southern edge of Dartmoor.
Yeah, in between Exeter and Plymouth, isn't it, really?
It's part of the South Hams, darling. And it joins the A38, so one side of it is kind of road embankment, and that kind of, like, you can hear all the noise and the traffic. And then there's, on the north side of it, there's some very steep grass fields that about 20 acres. And then as they hit the bottom, there's a brook called Horse Brook, which is a tributary to the River Avon, which flows out down to the sea at down the sluice bit.
Down near Bear Island and Big Brae and all that.
Big Brae and all that. So it's a beautiful little river, starts on Dartmoor, and so part of that comes through by us. And so we've got the brook, and then still on the north side, like moving kind of south-westish direction, there's a block of woodland. The original owner had a Christmas tree farm. And the story is that he had someone, working and doing the kind of labouring, helping out with jobs on the farm. And this guy was getting rid of some rubbish and clearing up some brush or something, and lit a little fire. And the fire did like a flash burn through the forest and damaged the Christmas trees, so they were rendered unsaleable. So the guy just left them.
Didn't bother to do anything else.
And so they're Norwegian spruce.
And now they're huge.
they're huge. And some of them are like pushing through and becoming like outcrowding the ones that are smaller and didn't kind of grow as fast. So there is like a certain slow amount of natural thinning happening, but it's a monoculture essentially, and that's about 15 acres of monoculture. I mean, it's not completely like null and void of wildlife. It does have some nice like structures for birds to nest in, and there's pollen and bits and pieces from the what they call little pine cone things. And
pine cones.
Well, not pine cones, but spruce cones. I don't know what you call them. You know what I mean? They look like pine cones, but they're not.
Are they deer?
There is some roe deer that frequent. They kind of roam through. Sometimes you see them early in the morning, just like on the edges of the fields, having a little nibble. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you see a little heron down in the brook as well.
There's a buzzard, isn't there?
There's a buzzard, and there's some jays, and it's all the kind of like standard kind of garden birds. Your tits and thrushes and all that kind of stuff. We've seen a fox, and we've got some active badger sets, which is really cool. Yeah. So the fields, they're grazed. They were grazed, but like having started a school there, we're like, we're not going to continue grazing and have like livestock management, because it takes so much time and energy to get a school up and running, and like.
Oh yeah, we should have mentioned what we were using the site for now, didn't we?
Oh yeah.
I just realised we didn't say that. The outdoor school has got its site there. How many kids are there?
At the moment, there's about 22 learners at the moment, I think, off the top of my head. So it's about 22 learners and...
That equates to like 40 staff, maybe?
No.
More, less?
Less. There's a 2-to-1 ratio. So,
oh, right, yeah.
But there's like management kind of roles as well. So I think there'll be maybe 15, 16 staff at the moment.
So you've got about 40 people on site most days.
Yeah.
Everyone's there.
Yeah, it's about 40 people on site. And then there's an area on the south side of the river, which is more, one end is quite marshy.
Okay.
And quite damp, and then as it kind of rises up the valley on the other side, it kind of dries out a little bit, and we've been kind of topping areas of that. So topping is like a lawnmower and tractor, in simple terms, and so we've made little play areas for running.
So when you say topping,
games.
what do you mean? You've been taking
cutting,
off?
Yeah, just cutting the grass and just leaving it where it is.
Okay.
To
mulch down,
and then the rest of it we've just pretty much just left to do its wild thing. And it's not like it is sort of scrubbing over. So grass does do well for like regenerating and being eaten and chomped and then sprouting new fresh stuff, rather than having like the old grass stagnant and kind of clumping up and getting all clumpy. And then there's another little patch of more of this Norwegian spruce on that south side, and then you kind of get up. There's basically a dilapidated barn.
Quite a big barn.
It's quite a big barn, but it's pretty useless because it's knackered, and it's just a concrete block and pretty dodge. So that's out of bounds, apart from for me where I need to park my tractor. And then there's a bungalow which we use as office space and therapeutic stuff. So if you need a quiet room for therapeutic intervention, that kind of stuff.
And a kitchen,
dry place to store library books and that kind of stuff. And kitchen and just general run of the mill kind of operational stuff. And then behind all that, on the very top paddock, is about a 4-acre little paddock, and that has the borehole. So that's where we pump the water from, which gets filtered, and there's a few old derelict kind of concrete buildings where the previous occupier had kept ducks and chickens and bits and pieces. And when I first viewed the site, they had a horse. But they got old and passed away, and then they would graze a few cattle. I can't remember what type of cattle they were. Maybe Devon Reds or something. I can't remember, or maybe Angus. I can't remember. But I think if you go on Google Maps and you stand at the gateway and on Street View, if you look over to the fields, I think you can still see some of the cattle because it hasn't been updated yet. So
hasn't been updated.
That's
an overview.
A good enough description. That
I think so.
Setting the context.
It sets a picture, doesn't it? Yeah. So before we dial down into specifics of all the things that you're getting up to on the land, which is quite a lot, what's your kind of overarching vision for the site? What you're hoping to achieve in terms of biodiversity and rewilding, which I know are trendy terms, but
it's got to be this multifunctional space. Primarily is it a school, and this area is for the learners. And so they're at the heart of this decision making, and we also have to have that in the context of our world and our natural environment and the kind of respect and the responsibility we have as stewards towards that. So as a company, we have the aim of becoming carbon net zero. So we're never going to completely eliminate carbon from our situation because it's just impractical. If we can find a way of offsetting and kind of balancing that and reducing that, then that would, that is part of the strategic plan. And we also, in our strategic plan, have the aim to uplift the biodiversity of our sites. So you kind of got to take a baseline of what's there, and then how do we increase that amount.
Have you done the baseline already or not yet?
As part of the purchase, planning permission, all that, you have to do a preliminary ecological survey, which is not like an amazing, like really super detailed survey like over the seasons and stuff, but it's like we've got this fine balance of like how much to kind of spend on those things, because like our revenue that we have for the contracts needs to be spent on learning, so we can do little bits here and there, but we can't really detract the money from what it's all intended for either. So there's this little balancing act, so we got to kind of find a way to do all these things like low cost. But one of the pieces of advice I've been given is to stand in the same spot each year and get your phone and take a series of photographs or panoramas. And then you kind of got like a solid like baseline of
what it's
looking
like.
So if you guys, want to get doing this stuff at home, people listening, like one of the cool things you can do, like pretty much everyone's got like a camera phone these days, just start taking regular pictures from like the same spot. And so that's one way we're going to try and do it.
That's cool. And presumably the learners can get involved in that.
Yeah, the learners can get involved, and I think it's one of those things where we try to be like learner led, so it's like when it's like initiated by them, but they've been discovering the hazelnut shells, and if you look at them the way they've been chewed, you can see which type of mouse or animal.
Way, that's so cool.
So you have to look at the bite pattern.
Okay.
And so you have to have a nice neat round hole.
Yeah.
And I think you have to look at the angle of the way the teeth have gone in. But we're fairly confident we might have dormice there.
That's really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. They're endangered, aren't they?
I think they definitely used to be on like the UK Biodiversity Action Plan kind of list of. I'm not sure exactly their current status, but I'm pretty sure they are protected. Yeah. I think you definitely used to anyway. It's been a while since I've been in the ecological world of like up to date, but you definitely used to have a handler's license.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that someone recently told me that you can hold dormice. So
yeah, which is hard. They look so cute. You just want to hold them.
They're quite small though, right? Like really small.
Yeah, but they're cute.
I'd be worried about squishing them.
Well, I think you have to be gentle. You can't just go mashing them.
Sorry, I got distracted by the dormice, but let's go and start breaking down the different elements of the site. So let's talk about the trees at the moment. So we mentioned that it was a Christmas tree plantation.
Yeah.
So how can we, and indeed how are we already, kind of sustainably and sensitively changing that habitat to something that would be more naturally found on the edge of Dartmoor?
Yeah, so we have a woodland management plan. So I think that's like a good starting point, like make a plan. Yeah. Where we're going to thin to like 25% to start with.
So what's already there?
Yeah.
Or hang on, so
thinning
taking out 25% or...
Yeah, taking out like 25%, because at the moment, I don't know if anyone's ever been to a Christmas tree farm where they go and select the actual one you want for Christmas from the field. They're really close, packed together, but then as trees grow up, they grow out as well, and so they crowd each other. So they've been spaced so that they were commercially kind of, you get as many as you can for Christmas trees, is what their design, that management plan originally was for. And so we need to start making space, because at the moment, if we planted some little saplings of native hardwoods, like a little oak tree sapling, for example, it just wouldn't get the light and the nutrients and bit. So we need to. The first stage is thinning. Yeah. Which again costs money. So we're doing it like little by little, and we're also, to kind of make that happen a bit faster and a bit cheaper, offered the felling for people doing chainsaw instructing.
Oh, that's cool.
So I've been talking to a local chainsaw trainer, if that's what they're called. Really lovely guy, and he's happy. We get like you'd have groups of about 6 people, and they have to like keep practicing those cuts to make sure they're safe and they get competent at it. So it's like, oh, you've got 15 acres of super densely planted. You can have as much practice as you like. So, so you would do it 25% to start with, because then at the moment they're growing like being used to the amount of wind and push from the wind. Yeah. And so if you do it little by little, they can like readjust themselves over time and go down a bit tighter if they need to. So if you do it slowly, then...
So if you did it really quick, you'd be at risk of them like falling over in the wind.
Yeah, which is kind of fine if you want them like over eventually. I don't want to like completely eliminate Norwegian spruce, but I do want to have that like proper mix.
Yeah. So what are you planting there?
So well, the plan, and this is one of the plans, is, and this is going back to the previous bit of the conversation, where the Christmas tree plantation was on what was fields.
Okay.
And so there are a few very old Devon kind of hedge banks. Okay. And there are 1 or 2 kind of native hardwoods just like kind of hanging on in there.
Hang on for dear life.
So what we've discussed is to have our thinning operations closest to those trees, which is called like halo thinning. So you thin around those.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we're hoping the natural regeneration, the natural regen will start happening by itself. If we just allow the space for nature to do its thing, then we're hoping that will happen more naturally. What was the question?
No, I said what are you going to replant it with? So you were saying that there's already some native trees there.
Yeah, we're trying to replant it with native things, and then I have been researching as well of you get air pruning tree nurseries, so you could basically make a big wooden...
Air pruning?
Yeah, so you make a big wooden box, like out of some old scaffold planks or something like that, and then you put some mesh underneath it to hold the soil in, but then you kind of lift it up a little bit off the ground, so you've got like a box with mesh and then like an air gap.
Okay.
And then when the roots hit the air, so you plant seeds in it, and then they grow down, and when those tap roots hit the air, they stop growing downwards and they start growing out a nice little...
Oh, okay.
So you can grow a lot of trees very cheaply and very like healthy, kind of big, nice root lumps.
Yeah. That's really clever.
It is really clever, and that's just like the internet. Like I've never heard of it.
Why do they grow out rather than down when they hit?
Well, I think they just there's like the natural
tendency.
Nature has gone. Well, there's nothing down there for me, so I may as well go outwards, and you just kind of Okay. So you can grow like quite a large amount of young trees. Yeah. Obviously, you like a limit to how long they'd all survive in there, but just enough to like get that initial bit. So, if this year I can make those boxes ready for the autumn, winter, like seed collecting, and then
you can have a go this winter.
Yeah, so we'll go scavenging some scrap wood from around the place and
nice,
bolting it all together and
making your boxes.
Do it on the cheap, and it's just sort of like it's just so low tech, you know, like everyone can get involved in that kind of stuff. So it's a cool project.
Yeah, that's really cool.
If no one's else interested, just do it by myself. No one else interested. I'll be like,
I'm sure you'll find a couple of willing volunteers.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, definitely.
So the thinning you're doing, what we're doing with the timber that's being taken down?
At the moment,
the chainsaw guy doesn't want to take it with him.
No, that is basically the cost of extraction is either equal to or greater than the value of the timber.
Oh, okay. So it stays there mostly. Yeah,
at the moment. But I think we'll look into how we can process it and use it for ourselves for firewood.
Do we use some of it for building structures though, around the company?
I think they have done, but not. I think we tend to try and use what's on site, or sometimes we just have to buy like. A lot of the structures the guys are building at the moment are like compost loos, where they need milled timber planks rather than like building in the round. just because of that's the way
that's the design
it just
process.
works.
Yeah. That's fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, but it would at the moment we can let it rot, and all the insects and the invertebrates and stuff will start to decompose it over time.
Yeah.
But yeah, ideally it would be nice to have a use for it. And I would like to keep the larger kind of trees that have become more established, let them grow on, so that maybe in the future someone else can turn them into like planks of wood that are kind of more useful to people. But yeah, spindly little kind of too big to be Christmas trees but too small to be planks, so like
not much good to anyone.
I don't know, like if anyone wants any teepee poles, like help us out. You know where we are.
Excellent. Whilst we're on trees, you're also, the thing that you're quite excited about is planning an orchard, isn't it? So tell us about your orchard.
Well, I
say it's yours. I mean, I know
I say
but I feel like
I'm commandeering the space because it's like it's the paddock behind the house, which is closest to the A38, and it's just like
not suitable for learners.
No, it's too noisy and kind of I want it. There's noisy and it needs like better fencing and infrastructure and that kind of stuff. So maybe in the future, but I don't want it to be kind of sat idle, doing nothing in the meantime. So it's like, well, what can it be? What would be useful? What would be beautiful? What would the future need? And it's like, well, man, I love apples. It's so delicious. Yeah. And I know, campfire cooking, you can't get better than like apple crumble, like it's a cold frosty morning or something, and then you get some apple.
Or even just toasted apples on the fire. I like it when you peel them and dip them in cinnamon and then toast that.
And you could even just like pretty much poke them on a stick
and just shove them on the fire. So just apples, not pears and plums or anything else.
If I can find some pears and what have you, I think definitely all of it. And then I want to make an orchard, but again, don't have very much money. So I was like, all right, I have to research into this. I've got a few friends that have orchards and kind of, I wouldn't call them orchardists, but they have, they've done the thing that is, and then do some online research. And so it sent me down this whole rabbit warren of like, is that rabbit hole?
Rabbit hole.
It sent me down the rabbit warren, the rabbit hole.
Rabbit hole, you're thinking
I've gone down the whole warren.
Not
just the hole. I've gone, and it's just like opened up my world to these like amazing things that we have.
Like, give me an example.
Well, it's apples, right? Grow on trees. Literally grow on. No, the cool thing is, I like them out. There's just like gazillions of different varieties, and if you wanted to, you can breed your own varieties. Okay. And they come in different shapes and different sizes, and all different tastes and textures and flavors and colors, and it's like a whole thing. Yeah, once you kind of, your eyes are open to it, you can't like not see it. And I like in the autumn when I'm like driving down the road, you can kind of see where people have chucked apple cores.
Yeah, I love that when they grow up on the side of the motorway.
That could be a whole new breed of apple.
My friends have got an orchard, and we went there to help pick, and he said, "Oh, Han, this apple here is honestly the most delicious apple I've ever tasted." And I picked one off the ground later on when he'd gone, and I said, Rob, I'm sorry, an alarm going off, I don't know how to stop that, let's put that away. And I picked it off the ground, and I was like, it's all right, but like, it's no dice, whatever. And I went and found them. I said, Rob, that apple's all right, but like, it's not the best apple I've ever had. And he said, do you pick it from the tree or the ground? I said, just windfall. He went, no, it only tastes nice when you pick it from the tree. Yeah. I was like, what magic is this? And so I went and picked one from the tree. And honestly, most delicious apple I've ever had. But how can it taste so much better while it's still on the tree versus on the floor?
But it's how the sugars affect over time, isn't it?
It's so absolutely magic.
So I remember one of the first times I picked sweet corn off like corn on the cob, and you can just bite into it fresh. You don't need to cook it. And it's like, it's a completely different thing. Like all the time, all my life, I'd had sweet corn from like the supermarket or from tins or what have you. And it's like, why is it like this? And it's like, as soon as you pick sweet corn, and it's probably like similar for apples, like the sugar starts reverting to starches.
Yeah.
And so it becomes blander.
Change the taste, yeah.
Yeah. So how long it's been hung on the tree, how much exposure it has to the sunlight, all changes the taste profile of your apples.
I went back this year and he said, we found a new variety that we'd missed last year. Tastes like pineapples. And I was like, all right. And honestly, it did. It was like the most tasty apple ever. I was like, pineapple apple, I love it. So I have to find out what variety that is for you so you can grow me a pineapple tree.
Well, what...
pineapple apple tree.
Pineapple apple.
A pineapple apple.
Pineapple apple. I'd love a pineapple apple.
I think that's a YouTube video, isn't it?
Well, this is the thing. So what we can actually do is grow that tree for you.
Yeah.
So what I've ordered, because this is like the cheap way of doing it.
Okay.
Because this I've spent a bit of my own hard-earned cash, but this is going to satisfy my own itch.
Yeah.
So I've ordered some rootstocks.
What are rootstocks?
So rootstocks are apple trees.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're all like categorized into like a system, and depending on what kind of code they are, it will tell you how large that tree will grow.
Okay.
So you choose a rootstock in terms of like if you want a short tree that you can reach, and it might be nicer for the learners to be able to just reach and pick them. So that might be like commercial, like M9.
Okay.
And if you want like a big tall apple tree and big wide, and then potentially you might choose that option so you could like graze animals underneath, or if you're a cider farmer and just kind of letting the apples drop anyway, you don't need to like go up into a big tree and pick them in the same way. That could work for you. And like the smaller trees, they come into fruit earlier.
Okay.
So you don't have to wait so long. From the time you plant them, there'll be a couple of years, and then you'll start getting a few fruit, and then the next few years you'll get more and more until they kind of reach their kind of full natural size, whereas like a big kind of standard tree will take much longer to get like a decent crop of apples from. But the big old trees will probably last a bit longer, and they don't need like stakes and support and that kind of stuff. So there's all these different kind of characteristics that you can choose.
Yeah. And what have you gone for?
So I've gone from some M9s, so the short ones.
So the learners can reach them.
So the learners can reach them, and I think it's just good to like I'm learning as well, so I want to do a little bit, and then I've gone for like a middle-sized one, which is M111.
Okay.
Which is like a medium-sized tree, but it's like the medium size where it doesn't tend to need staking and support. So I'm thinking, well, if I don't get around to it, and that's like another cost and another bit of energy, it's like going around staking them, make sure they're all right. So I've kind of got the smallest I can get away with without the extra faff and the extra effort. And I've also read somewhere, which I'm really keen on trying, is grafting a bit of the M9 on top of an M11, and then you'll kind of scion the variety of apple that you want. So you kind of have like a sandwich of three different bits. So I think the idea is you get like the strength of the M11 that doesn't need staking, but you get a kind of the vigorous kind of growth from the M9, and then you get the flavour of whatever scion.
So what's a scion?
So scion is basically the type of apple, in simple terms.
Okay. And how do you stick it onto the rootstock? You
graft it.
How do you do that?
So there are a number of different cuts. I've been practicing them. Okay. So this is like my learning journey, and it's nice that, we have these expectations of the learners that they should be learning, and it's like, well, I need to be learning. I need to be following my project and what I'm inspired to do. So I've gone out, I need to make this orchard. I have hardly any money to spend on it. So I've got to do it this cheap way. All right, to do that, I have to learn to graft. So I can't practice on the stuff I've spent on. So I've gone to the hedge and I've just got twigs. And then cut the twigs and then try to stick them back together.
When you say stick them, are you tying them? You're like, you're not using glue?
You can use like So you cut, if you just cut an angle in a stick, then there's another angle, the bit that you've cut off is the exact same angle that matches it. So you've got to kind of cut one end of your rootstock at that angle,
and then
you've got to try and try and match the scion at that, and then you can put another, and you can just tie them together like that, but you've got to try and match the thickness as well, because the living kind of part of the tree is in that just under the bark layer, cambium layer. So if you try and get the cambiums to match,
they're more likely to bond.
And then bind them together. And if you kind of do it kind of late winter, early spring, just as a tree is starting to grow, it's like the least time of having that wound open before like the tree starts to wake up and heal itself again. So it's getting about that time. So when will you do that? As soon as they arrive. So I'm going to see a friend who has an orchard on Friday, so in a couple of days' time from this recording. And so I've done a deal. I've said, well, I'll help you prune and do bits and pieces, and then I'm going to steal bits off the bits that I prune.
Nice.
That's
exciting. Can I come and watch you graft them? I'm really intrigued.
Yeah, you can have a go.
I don't want to ruin your expensive rootstock.
Well, it's not expensive. They're like, they're like £2 or something. Like, I mean, if you don't do it perfectly, then you can just like go back a little bit and
do it again.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, we can totally have a go.
That's awesome.
But then, I'll give you the rootstock, but you have to bring the pineapple apple.
But I will see if I can get that. I'm actually there on Saturday, so I'll ask them very nicely.
At the pineapple apple.
I'm at the pineapple apple orchard, so I will see if they'll let me take a little bit.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. I was like looking for a pen to write on my hand. I'll remember after the podcast.
So you have to get like last year's growth ideally. Okay. So it's the
Scion. Did you say?
Scion. So it's a bit like spelt a bit like science with a strange little C sneaked in there. I'm just going to do it like that for now. I'll remind myself. Just without that. Yeah, SCION.
All right, there. Yeah. Nice. Awesome. All right, I think I've talked enough about apples, although that is very exciting.
I don't think we have. No.
What else do you want to talk about apples?
Well, apples are amazing. And I think it's like all the folklore and stuff as well. It's like you get people like out in Devon these days, they go out wassailing and stuff like that.
I was just about to say about wassailing. I don't know if I really understand what it is.
Well, I think probably the roots of all this, as it were,
like pagan-y things.
Yeah, they probably go like way back, like old as the hills,
Because something about I bought a friend an apple tree, and she was saying about we need to.
Yeah, it's a kind of bless it, or
do something to bless it. Did you say pour apple? No, it can't be pour apple juice on it.
You pour cider.
Pour cider, on it.
Cider and toast randomly as well.
What, and toast is in like bread?
Yeah, toast. Yeah, bread, and like put it on the.
Oh, okay.
So this is, whoever first thought of doing that to ward off the evil spirits and stuff, genius. Like,
cider
obviously worked. Cider and toast works for everyone, warding off evil spirits. But, and some people like shoot shotguns and stuff like that, which is probably like a more modern edition, obviously. Yeah. But
maybe we can use Nerf guns instead.
Yeah, we could just shoot some Nerf guns at apple trees.
As long as we find the bullets.
As long as we're having fun, know.
I'd rather do that than a shotgun, but yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Like, I don't think there are any real hard and fast rules when it comes to wassailing. Okay. But I think, it's nice to bless the apple trees and kind of ward off the evil spirits. But I think, maybe looking back in time, if, that's like a good like amount of energy and like sustenance that you need. And so... harvest can depend a lot on the year. So if you have a late frost, for example, it can damage the apple blossoms.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And so there's actually and I'm not going to tell the story particularly well, but there's a place in Devon called Crediton, and the story was that I think it was like a priest or a monk or someone who brewed beer.
Okay.
Did a pact with the devil
for his beer to taste good.
No, to create to ruin the harvest blossom.
Okay.
And so there's occasionally it happens where in I think it must be around May time you get like 3 hard frosts in a row, just like randomly. There's they're sort of not getting as severe normally, but occasionally you just get 3 in a row that like really affect their apple blossom.
Yeah.
And then then no one's having as much cider.
So they'll have to drink the beer.
Yeah, they have to drink more beer.
Ah.
And so if we get 3 hard frosts in a row, we call it Franklin's frost.
A Franklin's frost. So that was the name of the guy, Franklin from Crediton.
Because I think, if you, especially working on the fields and that kind of stuff, and part of your wage or kind of compensation is cider.
Yeah.
So, it's quite important, like trade. And I think even now, like the tax exemption, I better not say that because we've got Tories in power, haven't we? They don't put that much tax on cider.
Well, compared to everything else?
Yeah, I think you can do like something like 1,000 gallons or something. I don't actually quote me on this. Like, check with your accountant. You can make a lot of cider before you get taxed on it because it's like it's kind of like a commodity for like trading in agriculture. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
It's cool, isn't it?
That's cool. You gonna plant any cider apples or just eating apples?
I mean, all apples can like turn into cider.
Okay. Why do people talk specifically? There's some varieties that are just ones that people use for cider that aren't very nice to eat.
Yeah, I mean they're not that nice to eat. But when they actually do juice down and kind of ferment, they actually do taste nice. Okay. And often they're much bigger, so you get more kind of juice for that. And
bang for your buck.
Sometimes the some qualities that people look for in a cider apple is like having like tougher skin, but like squashier inside. So when you're in the press, the skin kind of gets left behind, but all the juice squeezes out easily.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And so there's those kind of qualities.
That's presumably easier to clean your press out.
Yeah, I guess so. And you just get better extraction as well. So, all of those reasons are good reasons.
Things.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Maybe I will move it on briefly from apples unless it's... Oh, sorry. Do you've got more you'd like to tell me?
No.
Well, I was just going to say, because you mentioned earlier they used to graze there, but you have also told me that you are thinking about bringing cattle back in for grazing. So tell us about that. How's that going to benefit the natural pasture land?
Well, how to tackle that? That's like I know it seems like a straightforward question, but it's like everything's related to everything. And
symbiotic.
Yeah, and it's like, cattle grazing everywhere all the time, everything is not good for wildlife. But so how do I introduce this story? So we've been trying to figure out a way to make that like north hillside of the farm like manageable. It's so steep that you wouldn't be able to safely operate any machinery on there. So one of the ideas that we played with is just kind of up with woodland, but we've already kind of got areas of woodland that we're going to convert back into native woodland. Yeah. And with biodiversity, you kind of like, you want this tapestry. Yeah. And that's what you're kind of looking for. So we're quite keen to keep it as grassland, but then...
How do you manage it?
Can't really have a mechanical means of doing it. Well, there are, but then it starts to get expensive or unsafe. So not really viable, but possible. So then I went to a local rewilding network thing, run by, they operate out near Sharpham, but it's part of the national network of like rewilding or something like that. And they got some local landowners. I thought, well, I better go and find out what other people are doing. And they let us know there was a company or some people locally called Cows and Clover, and they have...
That's cute.
Yeah, they do conservation grazing as their kind of...
their bag.
Yeah, their bag. And so they've got a herd of Dexter cattle, which are... Honestly, they are... I went last week to do a stock check with them to find out what the ins and outs and how they kind of operate and if it would work with us, and I fell in love with these cattle. And they had some like Galloways, not belted Galloways, but they're like Galloways with a stripe going the other way. I can't remember what they call them, but they're beautiful. They're kind of really small cows, and they're really hardy, and they can just kind of sit out all winter long in this climate anyway. And they don't get too unwell easily,
Okay.
so you don't need like lots of vet bills and that kind of stuff.
So the company will bring them in and do the animal management.
Yeah, they'll do the management of it, and then the other side of the story is like, how do we make all that kind of work and not it costs money that should be spent on learners? So there's new legislation just about to come in, I think on like the 1st of February, where new developments need to have an uplift in biodiversity. And if for whatever reason they're not able to create a large enough uplift, they can basically contract that out. And a company we're going to work with called Biogains has their trained ecologists, so they can do like a baseline survey. So we get a baseline survey, and then they can sell. Then they can put in a management strategy, and then that uplift that they create from increasing the biodiversity can be bought by a developer to offset their biodiversity.
That's so clever.
And so between us as the kind of landowner, the ecologists, and kind of that bit, and the cows and clover, so we've kind of all got together to try and make this happen. So fingers crossed, touch wood, it all looks kind of positive that's going
really
forward.
exciting.
If it doesn't happen, I'll be so gutted because I'm
really
already in love with them. I'm so in love with them. They're well up for having because they're not operating to farm, like they do have like a bit of beef from the herd to keep the fresh kind of flow of genetics and everything, and whatever their thing is, but their main thing is grazing, so that largely to make their life easy, and obviously they love the animals as well. They've pretty much
just left
they're quite tame and stuff. So they do the stock checks, and the guy, John, took me out and was just like, just stand with them for about 5 minutes and just spend that time to observe them, and he's just like showing me what he's kind of looking for and looking at their eyes, looking how they're moving, and
that's lush.
It's really cool.
So we're going to lose you to all our meetings for a bit because you'll be off with the cows.
I'll be. Oh, sorry. I think
I'm stuck in traffic.
Stuck in traffic.
Cow's really sad today. Needs a hug.
Yeah. But I think that's like the other year we had one of the neighbours' cows actually get into the site.
Oh yeah.
And then we found like a learner just like reading a story to a cow.
Oh, that's so cute.
It's like we have therapy dogs.
So it'll be like therapy cows.
A therapy cow. Honestly, I think it's like the next big thing. You get like equine therapy. It's like bovine therapy.
Yeah.
It's like.
That's the next thing.
I think it's going to be even more effective. Honestly, it works for me.
Yeah. Oh, excellent.
I just still love therapy dogs.
So. Cows, that's very exciting, but why not other animals? Why not goats?
So I think there are a few reasons why cows are preferable. The temperament of the cows. They're really kind of generally quite placid. Docile. I think the way that they graze is beneficial for what we're trying to get with the wildflowers. And so we're not going to graze all year round. There's going to be like a rest period while the flowers establish and then seed, so that they can do that part of the reproductive kind of process. And the cow's hooves, I think they help make little prints and stuff that are useful for the seeds to like land in. So that I don't think there's like a no goat thing, but I think the way that the cows work, the way they agitate and make small what we call it, like disturbances, is like what the ecologists have advised is the way forward. But in terms of goats, like, why not? But as long as they don't eat my apple trees. But then
you're worried about the deer eating your apple trees.
I am. So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm going to have some, I don't think I said, but or try and get some M25 rootstock as well. So we're going to have tall apple trees that goats and deer and what have you can't reach.
Get to. Okay.
So then that might be, another reason for choosing a different rootstock type.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about the deer. We've mentioned quite a lot that the site's currently used for the outdoor school, and so with learners and staff there 5 days a week. Obviously, you've got to balance your kind of site management and improvement with not interrupting that work, because as you said, that's kind of the priority.
Yeah.
What challenges, but also benefits, does it bring to kind of doing it in like symbiosis with the school?
Well, I think one of the challenges is where, we're going to have to put in some fencing and bits of infrastructure and some cattle grids and that kind of stuff. So operationally, we have like small windows. Like, I think pretty much February half term, I'm going to be like sorting out fencing and that kind of stuff. So we're operating like machines and heavy plant equipment in that tight window. So we don't have, like, if you want to farm, you kind of just do the farming bits and implements when it's needed for the farm.
Yeah.
But here we've got to work around the context of the learners. Yeah. But on the benefits, it's like, the whole constructivist kind of idea is about learning from experience, isn't it? So the more experiences we have, the more you learn. The more you learn. It's like, well, there's going to come to a point where some of those cows that the learners might have built a relationship, some of them might pass away, they might go to an abattoir. One day they might come back as burgers. Yeah. I don't think we'll probably go that far with the learners at the moment, because it's like, but I think, having that experience of having a relationship with an animal and understanding about your relationship with yourself and food and that animal and experience it in that context in a real life. Like, that's really important. You can think about those things, as like conceptually, but then when you're actually fully confronted with that genuine emotion about how do you feel about that, that's when some real learning and some real growing happens. Yeah. And I think, those kind of things are important. Yeah. Yeah. And like our estates team are used to learners across all the company wanting to get involved and help, aren't they? So like they're quite happy if it's safe for a learner to get involved and help them with their work they're doing. Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the more the school is built and created and developed and designed and refined by the learners, the better the school is doing for it. Like, that is ultimately those learners taking charge of their learning, taking charge in their community, showing their leadership skills, and having that really invested kind of care if they're wanting to make those impacts. Like, that's a really good, like, what do you call it, sign of like success. Engagement and success. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So everything we spoke about so far does tie in beautifully with our aims that you mentioned at the beginning of becoming net zero and also working towards becoming a B Corp company. Yeah. And you also mentioned earlier about that kind of idea of a biodiversity gain or uplift. I don't think I totally understand what that means. Can you explain it? So you want to explain the biodiversity, how a biodiversity gain works? Yeah. So at the moment, let's take a really straightforward example. If we've got the monoculture woodland, and that being a single species plantation will only be useful for a smaller spectrum of animals or other plants. Okay, so if we change that habitat and create that diversity, it's useful to a larger amount of different animals and plants. So you've you've got one species of tree essentially. Yeah. And there might be half a dozen species it kind of supports. But if we put a management plan and intervention where we thin it out and replant with some native broadleaf, it could be that we see an increase in the amount of different species that start to come in and make that their home, their habitat. And so it would be more useful to a wider range of... Okay. And there's also, it's good to, in terms of disease and pests and what have you, if you've just got one lump of the same thing, that disease or pest will go straight through. So if you've it will go through eventually, but it slows down that kind of spread as well. there is like another kind of string to that as well. So there's an island biodiversity theory.
Okay.
So, and this is a cool one for like listeners at home. It's like, I'm not gonna like plant a whole rewild a whole kind of woodland, but the island biodiversity thing, if you add up all of the people's like window boxes and gardens and allotments and stuff, if you imagine those as little islands, and then if different species are able to like essentially like commute to the different islands, they actually add up and they do count.
Oh, okay.
So like you really can make a difference. So I remember I was at uni, we went round Bristol looking at different kind of community projects and as part of the course, and there was someone there that had started like a garden award scheme for wildlife, and no one had to enter it. They just went round and like would randomly give like a good certificate to
that's
like
awesome.
these people, and like it might be someone who's like, well, I haven't done anything with a garden. It's like, it's great. It's really scruffy. It's actually really like beneficial to these like, you know, different insects and what have you. So by like, kind of some people just like not bothering, they've actually got a certificate for a good garden.
That's so cool.
But so hopefully if we make our bit a bit more diverse, and then a neighbour or the neighbour's neighbour or something down the valley makes, you know, an improvement for the like between the two. So the other part of the theory is the larger the islands or the combined total of the islands, the more species it can hold.
Okay.
So, you're more likely to go up the kind of trophic scale. So like the apex dominant predators, like your buzzards, or where's at the king of the food chain, or like a lovely barn owl or something, or might be in the, you know, somewhere like Exeter. It might be you're supporting more of the
seagulls.
Seagulls. Yeah,
That's not what you're thinking.
The fast bird, the falcon.
Falcon.
You know, those kind of things. So you got, you know, don't think that your little action doesn't, because it does.
It all helps.
And so and it's like a proven kind of ecological theory.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So it's
awesome.
worth doing.
Yeah. Well, do you know, it's a really stupid example. Is I live in, obviously, a new build house. I mean, obviously, cheeky, you're sat in it, but not everyone. But out the front, all the gardens have got black railings, and the hedgehogs I don't know if the hedgehogs go up and down everyone's gardens through the railings. But if there was fences, they wouldn't be able to do that. But they fly between, so you see them like pootling up through everyone's
because
gardens.
then they're not like the isolated islands that no one can like commute between them. So if you're allowing that. Now you've allowed that access. All those gardens combined make one big garden that can support a larger amount of hedgehogs, which would, you know, maybe in the wild then whatever predates on them, like a fox or something. Then you'd have a larger amount of fox, you know. And so it's all like as much as you can give back to nature, like the better.
It was very exciting and also a massive relief when we kept hearing things snuffling in the bushes, and I thought, oh, we've got rats, we've got massive bloody rats. And I got the torch and I was like, oh, it's a hedgehog.
Yeah, that's like, I remember like having a similar experience camping. Like, what the hell? Because they quite like for their size. They're quite
noisy for a tiny thing.
Oh, that's cool.
You thought it was something big.
Yeah, I thought. I'm just like, you know, you're dark out in the middle of nowhere. Like, oh my god.
Although you did have an experience with deer, didn't you, while you were camping? So that must be.
I've had an experience with beer. I've had experience with beer camping and deer, and beer and deer. And I've also had, like, I was down at the. So I grew up near Exmoor, and I had an experience. I was like, it was really dark. And I had a campfire at the bottom of the garden. It was like, it was kind of like, I was like, I think that's a pig. And it's like, there's no pig farms or anything like nearby. I was like, oh my god, what the hell is that? I went inside. I was like, Dad, I think there's a pig outside. It's like, you know, it's like crazy Tom again. But it turns out there was a wild boar.
That's so cool.
There was a wild boar farm about 6 or 8 miles away that had some escapees. And that's awesome. I wasn't actually crazy, which is relief.
Which is a relief.
I'm not hearing wild pig noises.
Not on that occasion, at least. I'm going to quickly go back to the net zero thing. So I was just thinking, like, obviously when we talk about like the company wanting to be net zero, we're talking about like a company that's spread across 12, 14 sites, and it's got offices and it's got lots of people driving and stuff. So in terms of like, for example, the work you're doing at the South Brent site, presumably that can offset some of the carbon use from putting out too much paper or driving.
Yeah, and I think we'll just do it as like a paper-based exercise. I don't think we'll like sign up to any particular kind of scheme, because I just, you know, it's kind of like an ethical, like, you know, what do you call it, like minefield. Like, I don't fully understand like the ethics behind it yet to like invest money into those kind of things, or you know, whether we should be investing money. But I think, you know, and we have to like understand the parameter of like what we're, you know, are we including everyone's commute to work? Like, we have no control about where people live and how far they want to travel for work. Like, so, but that is kind of like something that happens because you do operate. So it's like, do we do that? You know,
it's a bit of a minefield.
But I think we need to kind of look at that, and we need to make sure that we're at least enabling people to like do sensible things like lift share and incentivize cycling.
I was going to say, we've incentivized public transport, haven't we?
Yeah, well, hopefully.
I read a policy the other day, and I said, "Oh, look, you get
just
more like
the
more
new
mileage costs for getting on the bus."
And I think we're doing stuff. If someone, you know, if someone is doing a commute like for work, not to work, but you know, as part of business, that, you know, you still get like an extra for the person that you take with you, and that kind of stuff. So it's just like everyone's kind of a winner from that. And then obviously like the hybrid working model. So you know, where we're not actually having to deliver as much as we can, we allow people to work flexibly and remotely as much as possible.
Yes. But so I guess like where you're doing all these big works at South Brent, it does at least offset some of that.
It starts to, and I think offsetting in my head should be like the last
resort. Should we reduce first of all?
Yeah, we should be like planting and doing all this stuff like anyways.
Anyway, you know, and that's just a bonus.
And you know, like, it's a funny old world we live in, and you know, I can imagine all these like new schemes and stuff like the biodiversity uplift stuff. You know, there's no perfect scheme, and you know, it's sad that those developments aren't forced to have like the biodiversity there on that site. And if it's not possible, it's not possible. And it's like, well, at least some like corporate money is moving towards something like the good environment. And, you know, so it's more than we had before. So it's a step in the right direction. Is it enough? I'm always going to say no, because I want everything based to be like temperate rainforest and we can just like live like Ewoks.
Awesome. Is there anything else before we close that you want to tell us about the site, or what we're doing at the site that we haven't covered? Or do you think we've kind of hit all the bases?
I think we've hit most of the bases. There is one little bit. There is the marshy bit, and there is, and I haven't seen them yet, but they Biogains have been taking levels and stuff from the river and over that marshy bit, and are looking at making like little pools and like little like run through bits, and they've got some aquatic ecologist kind of person in to kind of do all that. So there's
cool.
kind of like the water ecosystem bit as well, which is really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, can't talk today. Sorry. Looking forward to seeing what they kind of discover and find out from there, because it's always really interesting.
Yeah, it is really cool. Yeah. We had to put some drainage in that went through there for like to support our track, and the guys in the estates team, they went down with their digger to put all this stone in, and then they'd done the levels slightly wrong, and a bit of the river water started to trickle back a little bit, and then it hit this hole. And it sunk through the hole, like below. There was like a backward spring.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's so weird. I've never seen that before in my life. Where like water's disappearing down the hole, and the hole was obviously like lower than the river. So like all that like underground water stuff blows my mind.
Amazing. That's really cool.
So if anyone knows about what those things are. I'd love to
please let
understand.
us know.
Like what is a backward spring sinkhole type thing.
Yeah,
and
that's the official term. Yeah. Backwards hole spring.
Well, a backwards hole, but it's like it was kind of like, it wasn't like exactly like a round hole, like it looked like a pipe, but it was just kind of like percolated back through. It was so weird.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. The things you find.
It is amazing. Like, yeah.
Thanks for coming after a long day at the office to chat to me this evening.
Most welcome.
I've been asking everyone 3 questions at the end, but you've already been on the podcast, so I've changed yours.
Oh, okay. 3 new questions.
Well, you've actually only got 2.
Oh, right. 2 new questions.
2 new questions.
All right, cool.
But the first one is an old question, but it's going to be a new answer because I'm assuming there's sort of changed in the last 2 years.
Okay.
Which is, what are you reading or listening to right now?
Well, for Christmas, I got given... I can't remember the title.
Okay.
Because it's in Japanese and my memory is very poor.
Okay.
But it's basically like the balance in life kind of thing, and there's a Japanese word for it.
Okay.
And so I'm reading... It's a bit like that Blue Zone thing, where if you have these kind of elements in your life, you're kind of more balanced, less stressed.
Okay.
I think there was a subtle hint there from the partner about that. But so that's been an interesting read.
Okay.
So far. I haven't got very far through it, but...
Well, it's only a couple of weeks after Christmas.
Yeah, but it's about like kind of finding your purpose and kind of what interests you and what inspires you and all those kind of things. You boil it all down and trying to get the right amount of each thing in your life.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh, awesome. And my last question for you is, what are your outdoorsy goals or outdoorsy things that you're looking forward to this year?
Wow, I'm looking forward to making a pineapple apple with you. I'm looking forward to learning more about cows.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward... I had a lovely camping trip with one of my sons. And so I'm looking forward to like building on that.
More camping.
Yeah, there's just like sometimes I think just having like the one-on-one time, I think, you know, having 3 kids, I think it's sometimes I feel like I'm giving everyone like a bit of a third of myself. And it's like I never fully give like a whole time, and so I think having that time and space with like one at a time actually over the year, just like a little camping trip or something, that kind of just have that space in nature like one-to-one together, I think that's going to be a big aim. And then if you're up for it,
we'll see
if we're injury free and have the time and energy for training, I'd love to run across Dartmoor end to end.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Cool. Yeah, it would be cool.
If we might, no pressure.
I like that you're trying to make me commit to it on recorded.
We all heard it here.
For solstice, that would be fun.
Yeah, for solstice, or like if it's like needs to be in a colder time so we don't get frazzled. But
sorry, I got distracted for those listening by my calendar, because the day after solstice is summer is a full moon, which would be a lush day to do it.
That'd be good.
We'll wait and see, hey? But yeah, that would be fun. But
that would be good.
Nice
I need something like energetic. If I have like a goal to aim to, otherwise like I stop jogging and then I become more miserable.
Yeah. Move more, be happier.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Oh, thanks so much for coming to talk to me today.
It's been really enjoyable.
Yeah, I think so. A massive thank you to Tom for coming to join me at my kitchen table to talk about the land that we've got at South Brent and all the exciting rewilding projects that are going on there. I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope that you enjoyed listening to it. If you did, as always, if you could like the podcast, rate it, subscribe, do all those things that means that other people will find us. That would be fantastic. We'll be back again in a fortnight with another episode. And until then, thanks for listening.